Let me show you an example from a real-world situation so you can understand a little bit better this idea of variation. And variation visualized in such a way that it can actually be useful. And this is a list of the results of the sales of a test that I ran in 1994 from Christmas until April 2nd, 1995, and it's of the atoms on the right-hand side. And it was just, we did it to see if which item was the best, and put it in context. We spent a lot of time working on the ads. The ad meeting was the most important meeting of the week. You had to defend your position. You had to defend what happened. You had to predict what you thought would happen next week. It had to fit in with the overall line of the company and what the ad was. And you spent a lot of time coming up with explanations why you didn't meet the goal they set for you or you set for yourself, depending on the ad, the week, and the situation. And you had to figure out which item had the most impact. So in terms of the most expensive, people in the company, managers, 4 to 5 to 6 hours of every week was spent working just on this ad in the ad meeting. It was a lot of work. So the purpose of this exercise is to try to apply the ability of understanding variation in visualizing what happens to predict whether all that time that's spent working on these things, do any of those ads stand out? Is there a pattern? Is there something they can make it better? Or is it even really worth it spending that much time worrying about what you have on ad? Now, you'll notice the numbers. The first column is the kitchen sales. The second is the cheese sales. The meat is the meat sales for that particular week, the week the ad was in effect. Then you can see the total in the last column. I suppose you could in time, particularly you'd see some patterns, but you'd have no way of knowing what was the causal effect, what did it correlate to the ad, etc. It's very hard to predict and move very quickly, so you put it into a chart. Now this chart represents, and a scale that includes everything, the data that's in that little table to the left. But if we look at this, David, what do you see when you look at this chart as a visual, not at the table? What do you think it's trying to tell you?
Well, it is definitely a peak season.
Yeah, there seems to be something on it. What?
It also seems to be, I was just saying that it seems to be some consistency across the board.
Mm-hmm. It's got a wave-like pattern. It's got one big jump, right? Now, we don't know yet if that's a special cause or an out-of-the-ordinary variation because we don't have that tool to do that in this particular chart. But we would suspect, given the size of the jump, that the first blip is kind of out of the ordinary. There's not enough there to really know what's going on. And if you look at it for a while, you might see some patterns, and people do that. They look and you can see the line of the kitchen, which is the blue line here. It looks a little bit like from the 7th of January, it starts to go back up again. And if you look at the cheese, which is just underneath it, it looks like it may be going down a little bit. And honestly, in most of the meetings, that's what we spent our time talking about, and we actually took many steps to try to counteract that and pull it up again to change the displays, because looking at the data alone, it seems to be a downward trend. We did not understand variation. We didn't understand what we were looking at, and most of us don't.